A bit of technical difficulties. There we go. Almost there. There we go. We did it. My goodness. What is up, my friends? Welcome back. My name is Uncle Eddie, and I will be your dungeon master. Been a few days since we did a little DM prep, but, you know, the grind never ends. The DM prep never ends, my friends. So we had last weekend, we had played the Dead Squid Cove by DM Dave. I think that went pretty well. We had strived to make a one-shot, and I think the way that he wrote it was done very well. And yeah, we were able to do it in one shot. Maybe go back and think about a few things. So, you know, with this big pile of gold right here, they were very easily distracted, and it kind of brought them this way, and they kind of made some tracks that they were able to follow, brought them through this little stream right here, kind of got into here, and that's when you start playing up the dead octopuses. Oh, a new boo. And yeah, and then you just start the fight pretty much right away. The only things I'll say a few things about this module. One, I don't really know what the boar is doing there. Why is there a wereboar in the Dead Squid Cove? I don't know. It just seems a little out of place. And I get, like, you know, you're playing a level 3 party or level 3 to 5, and they're not usually going to have a magic weapon. Paladin has magic weapon, and I don't know. Just, you know, if you're going into a one-shot, and you should always know that if you're going into this one-shot, you should always know that one of your players has some way to deal with this guy. Because when the monk and the barbarian begin to fight this thing with their normal weapons, they kind of, you know, you could tell that they were a little frustrated and a little, just a little lackluster to constantly hit something and do nothing to it. When you have no options other than to stun and kind of do those things, it's kind of, I don't know. Maybe in the future I would probably replace that boar with something else. Perhaps a squid or something nautical themed. I put it in Salt Marsh. I probably could have put some Sahuagin in there or something like that, but you know, I didn't want to mess with the encounter too much and just let it play out. One thing I will say is the party began to fight kind of around here, and then once the boar started taking a little bit of damage, I wanted to have him kind of retreat this way and have the veteran fire arrows from that right there, but I don't know if maybe the characters didn't see when I moved the token that way, but I think they kind of lost where the boar went, and they kind of went back this way, which is blocked by this secret door. So there's kind of like this, there's like 2 rounds where nothing really happened, and I used those 2 rounds to basically push everybody up this way, all my monsters, and when nothing happened, I just had the veteran just bust through this door and begin to attack them and draw them into this area. And then the fight just kind of went as is. I think I probably could have bumped it up a little bit more in challenge rating, but I really, really wanted to make sure that I stayed within the time limit of 3 hours. It ended up being 2.5. Because, you know, combat lasts forever. So, but I think it went pretty well, and they seem to enjoy it, and I would rate this out of 10 probably a 7. I think it's really good. I like the map. I like the idea of it. I really like the idea that it fit within a one-shot. I think I would replace the boar. I think that I would do something with these octopuses. At least make one of them be like undead or something like that. But yeah, pretty good. I liked it. So the next thing that we're going to have to prep is going to be back to GOS Salt Marsh. However, this prep is not for my mainstream prep. This is actually for my Thursday group, and they are a little bit further ahead because they started this a little earlier than the stream did. They've got a pretty big party, which I had to cap at 6 because honestly anymore, guys, you know, it's great to have all your friends there, but a 7-character game is hard to run. It's hard to run, and it's hard for everybody to get their turns in and really feel like they're doing something. I must not be. I know what I'm doing wrong. I think every time I go live, I forget to change my status in Twitch. So that's Oceanus, by the way. Let's make sure that we're visible, because we always forget to do this. It's visible. Okay. There we go. Now we fixed it. All right. Cool. Yeah, so yo, what up, bro? How's it going, Loki? Doing some overlays and stuff. Archive something. But yeah, seven player, anything above 6 in a party is too much, and it's just, the system's just not built for it. I'm still figuring it out. Nice. Hey man, it's Wednesday, you know, just take it easy, chill out, make some tea like I did. So we capped it at 6, and they have somebody kind of shuffle in and out every other week when they play. But we've got a shadow magic sorcerer, we've got a barbarian, we've got a cleric of Procan, we've got a warlock, a swashbuckler rogue, and a paladin, and I think Mimsy might have dropped out. They had a dog at one point, sadly it died. So they've gotten through they gotten through the haunted house, and I put in a random encounter for the SS Evergreen that got stuck, and I kind of made this into just like a little meme. It's just a ship that's stuck. I just put some Sahug in to fit the story. They went through the sea ghost. They now own the boat and the property, the abandoned home. The city council decided it was best to just give that to them, because at least somebody will actually do something with the property, and they can't really, like, you know, they don't want that pirate ship really in their fleet. So they give them the ship and the property, and after the first adventure, your characters have, you know, a base of operations and a means of transportation. Saltmarsh gets a lot of slack, I think, from what I've seen, for it not having a lot of seafaring adventures, even though there's like a lot of like information in it on how to use the ships. And you know, I kind of agree, and I think that like there's a few other books that you should, you know, if you really want like super Pirates of the Caribbean, you know, this is a base that you can use to add to your story. You can make it more piratey or not. We're kind of just following it as written, but we're following it as written, and we're making it into a campaign followed by this article here. We're going to use this as our big boss, and any spoilers, just letting you know. We're going to follow this in kind of a 2-act kind of story. So this party is now going towards danger at Dunwater, and this adventure is a little strange, and a lot of people will say it's strange because it's a social quest, basically. And if you have a party that doesn't really like RP, you know, you can play it in different ways, and maybe, you know, try to make the lizard folk a little more hostile. But yeah, it's pretty tough, and it's got a lot of it's got this ongoing mechanic that you kind of have to maintain. So something that I've been putting off, and we definitely need to prep. So we're gonna go straight into danger at Dunwater, really. Okay, so like you get to this map in this book and it's massive. This is a massive dungeon. If this was like a standard dungeon crawl, it would take, you know, a few sessions to get through. It's got this land map, and I'll say that the Roll20 version of it doesn't have some of the information that you need, so we'll talk about that. But Danger at Dunwater, as you guys know, these stories are basically refinished original stories made for 5e, and this one is about the lizard folk that your adventurers will meet on the pirate ship that they attack. So a little bit of a background and requirements. The smuggling ring and operation out of the abandoned house has been disbanded. Those guys did slay all of the all of the pirates that were found in both the abandoned house and on the ship. They left nobody but the lizard folk. And you kind of, I think that's kind of in part because you play them up. I played them up as kind of like involved with the sea princes, which is, you know, they're slavers and pirates and really bad people. So automatically your characters are probably just going to want to slay all of them. On this, they're like super lawful good. But I don't know about that. But the characters do eventually find out that the smugglers were supplying weapons to a tribe of lizard folk that have established a colony near Saltmarsh. So they did learn this, and after killing everybody on the ship, they need like a way to get home back to Saltmarsh with this ship. And then they find out that these lizard folk are waiting for a shipment of weapons from these pirates. So there was a little bit of a weird thing where we couldn't really figure out like who's gonna like, you know, who's gonna man the ship. You need like an actual crew. So you start to kind of like introduce the idea of like what are your players' roles going to be on this ship? Who's going to be the captain? You know, who's going to be the cook? Who's going to take care of the sails and the anchor? And like, you know, you'll kind of like just lightly introduce that, and then you kind of just let them police it and like kind of hash it out themselves. One of them will usually step up to be the captain, and you know, you can kind of go from there. So this is a little bit different. When the counselors discover that a seasoned group of adventurers have arrived in town, they already know about them. They send a message to the characters inviting them to a meeting. So where I left them off, they were around town, and I told them of a secret of a troll that had gotten into a warehouse nearby. They fought that. So I'm probably going to let them kind of adventure around the town again. And Oceanus is somebody that they meet on Sea Ghost. He's going to kind of just chill on the boat and kind of wait for them because he doesn't really know what to do. So we're going to let them kind of do a day of like exploring the town and just kind of poking around, finding any side quests that they might talk to, or, you know, anybody that they might talk to. These guys are kind of more the party that like don't really want to spend 3 hours shopping. So you kind of have to just be able to like throw everything at them, and then they're going to want to leave. You know, they're going to want to get straight to it. So I might just have a courier just go straight up to them. They know, you know, either, you know, Anders Solmar and the city council of Saltmarsh knows where to find these guys, whether it's some kind of bar or any of the 3 bars or their ship, or the abandoned house itself. So they're just going to send a courier and just have them summoned again. The city will then offer them 700 gold pieces for this quest. Judging from a crude map found aboard the smuggler's vessel and from information provided by the Sea Elf or Oceanus, it seems likely that the lizard folk are preparing for war. Council members hope that the townspeople are not intended to target, but greatly fear this possibility. So I think they just got back with the ship, and they didn't really tell anybody about the weapons or anything like that. So it's gonna have to be like somewhere that they kind of get nudged towards this place. Site of lizard folk colony has been tentatively identified as a coastal promontory adjacent to a small river, the Dunwater. Some 10 miles southwest of Saltmarsh. I spelled my title wrong, didn't I? Some 10 miles southwest of Saltmarsh, the council considers it's essential that a scouting party be sent to reconnoiter the area and ascertain the strength and size of this colony, as well as the intentions of the lizard folk. So it's kind of hard because you really have to like hide, really have to like make sure that you hide that these lizard folk are not preparing for war against Saltmarsh, but in fact another third entity, which is the Sahuagin. I introduced the Sahuagin twice already as kind of just like these sea monsters, and gave them no explanation at all. So that when this would happen, they would kind of be like, oh, that's why we were attacked on our way to Saltmarsh by these that's why we found those two Sahuagin lizard or sea people rummaging through the wreckage of the ship. That's why they attacked the SS Evergreen and blocked the canal, and that's why all of these things happen. It'll kind of be like an aha moment for them. So the true threat, as they will learn, people of Saltmarsh and of course the characters are unaware of the true situation. As the adventure gets underway, lizard folk are not preparing against Saltmarsh, but more sinister presence, the Sahuagin. Just over a year ago, a colony of lizard folk were driven away from their home by an invasion of Sahuagin. Forced to find a temporary home, they restored an old lizard folk stronghold that had been abandoned for decades. Determined to recapture their home, the lizard folk have been busily purchasing arms and negotiating an alliance with other nearby aquatic races. The lizard folk's main purpose is to form an army to expel the Sahuagin from the area. In doing so, they hope to discourage the Sahuagin from ever intruding from the region. The lizard folk have not approached Saltmarsh because humans are humans, and this fight will be largely underwater, but also humans are dumb. So ambassadors from the Colinth, the Lokalith, and the Merfolk are present in the lizard folk lair. Sea elves were not invited to join the alliance because of long-standing disputes between them and the Colinth. So they will have Oceanus, a sea elf. That's an elf, sea elf, in there with there. So there's a little bit of tension there. So these four races will come together, overlooking their rivalries and differences, to negotiate a agreement of cooperation. So, even as the lizard folk strive to hold their alliance together in the face of a common foe, their bonds are beginning to fray. How the characters perform this mission and what sort of relationship they establish with those lizard folk on behalf of Saltmarsh will determine if the coalition has any chance of success. So this Oceanus guy, you kind of have to be careful, of course, always with DM NPCs. You really don't want an NPC to outshine any party member ever, but you also don't want them to be so weak that they are like dead weight. And with a party of 6 people, this guy's kind of just going to be like extra firepower, I guess. I found this art for him. I think that's pretty cool. And over the course of the story, as long as he doesn't die, I'm gonna probably keep kind of building him up until he can kind of act as like a third party for them. Maybe he becomes an ambassador for them, and he can help out with interfacing with the city council and any other sea elves or the Sahuagin or the lizard folk. It's gonna be very interesting because they found him as a slave, and they kind of just like took him with him as like to free him, but he kind of gets off of this ship and with his freedom, and there he's in Saltmarsh, and he kind of sees it as like, I don't really have anywhere to go now besides home, and these guys have a ship and property, and they're gonna fight these Sahuagin and lizard folk. Like, this guy wants his own revenge and to prove himself again. So it'll be cool to kind of build him up, and then eventually the party will push him away for his own freedom, and he's gonna have to figure that out on his own, kind of battle with his own freedom. But he's a really cool character, so we can kind of dig into him a little bit more. Oceanus is a member of the tribe Manan, which inhibits an undersea settlement about 20 miles southeast of Saltmarsh. He was stripped of his weapons and armor when he was imprisoned, but though bruised and hungry, he suffered no great injury, and his spirit is undaunted. The tribe has noted from a distance the periodic travels of the Sea Ghost, the ship that they attack at night in supposedly deserted coastal area. So it's calling me. Suspicious of this behavior, the tribal chief ordered Oceanus to keep watch in this area, slip aboard the ship when arrived, and follow the ship back to the port of origin to discover what he could of these strange proceedings. He did this, and at the vessel's home port, he witnessed stowing aboard of a small arsenal of weaponry. He was then discovered, knocked down, taken prisoner. So they can this kind of opens up also to some side quest stuff where you can take the party to go see whenever maybe they want to return him to his people, his tribe. You can take them to go see this great underwater settlement of sea elves. I think that's just naturally a very cool thing to do. Anything underwater is going to be fun, and you can probably throw in any of these. I don't know what level they are yet, but you can throw in any kind of like sunken treasure or piratey things on the way there to returning Oceanus to his tribe. Not yet, though. He's got to get through the lizard folk. So, as I mentioned, this adventure is very political and very social, so it's got a lot of stuff going on. There is a queen named Othokent. Wonder if it's got a pronunciation. Nope. Othokent, who is supported by a sub-chief named Ertos. Several officers, many warriors. Her progressive stance is inspired and driven by wisdom of the aged lizard folk minister Soriv. Opposing that group, mostly covertly, for the rule of the queen remains absolute, are the traditionalists. So immediately you see here the lizard folk automatically or already mirror what's happening in Saltmarsh. Almost completely. There's traditionalists, and there's kind of there's like traditionalist loyalists led by shamans. Shamans believe that allying and intermingling with other races is contrary to the divine of the will of their god. This is why we were practicing, so we know how to pronounce it. Semonia. So we're gonna say that. Semonia. Yes, that's good enough. And no good can come of it. Consequently, the shamans hate to distrust their minister, Sariv, whom they consider to be the prime instigator of these efforts that go against nature. They do not move openly against him, however, since he enjoys the trust and favor of the queen. So this kind of goes into a little more of how the party will interface with the lizard folk. obviously you want them to do as little damage to these lizard folk as possible. So that they can, take their chances. But you should know your party. You should know the players that you have at your table. You should know if any of them are going to be chaotic, and or if they're evil or if they're good. You're gonna have to tailor this module a lot towards your party. If the lizard folk queen is killed in the course of this adventure, she's succeeded by a sub chief. If the sub chief is also killed, the succession goes to the warrior officers, and if all of those are slain, then the succession fails falls to the most senior surviving shaman. In this event, the shaman immediately denounces an alliance and pulls the lizard folk out of it, sacrifices the aged lizard folk minister to the lizard folk deity Simonia. We gotta figure out what this pronunciation is. I don't know what it is. Pronounced say muy. That doesn't help at all. Oh. Say muenya. Say muenya. Say muenya. That's what I'm gonna do. Say muenya. Say muenya. Yeah. And it leads the remainder of the tribe into the depths of the marsh beyond the reach of the Sahuagin. So we got Semuinya and the Sahuagin. If all lizard folk notables are slain, surviving members of the tribe simply drift away into the marsh, taking positions with them. There will be no chance of an alliance against the Sahuagin that involves the lizard folk. Ideally, when the characters learn the truth about the lizard folk and the Sahuagin, they have done so before causing irreparable harm to the occupants of the lair, and the lizard folk's plans for the alliance against the Sahuagin. For their mission to have any chance of succeeding, the characters must eventually gain or be forcefully prodded into an audience with the queen. It will probably almost always be this. I don't know. I think that this party that I'm going to send through it on Thursday, they will probably need to be forcefully prodded into audience with the queen, whereas my stream group may go a little more political. I think there's 2 characters that would kind of drive that a lot, maybe 3. Even if her initial reaction is not a friendly one, characters might still have a chance of winning over the lizard folk and making them receptive, if the characters suggest as much, to admitting Saltmarsh into the alliance. Handling the interaction between 2 sides against the backdrop of the first contact between lizard folk and potentially friendly humans can be difficult, though it is always possible to let role-playing take its course, particularly if the characters refrain from combat and make a good first impression. Things might not quite play out that simply. Here are some guidelines to handle this aspect of the adventure. They start off with 0 points, and you have to track their progression the entire time. From the moment that they start this adventure, you need to start tracking. And I will probably do that just on a piece of paper, honestly. I was thinking about okay, I need to make an Excel file with this table that'll auto generate how many points they have judged on what they do. I'm like, it's so much, and there's so many things that can change it. Just I don't know, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use good old index card with a pencil and adjust their score every time they interact with the lizard folk. The score is adjusted, but the results only become apparent when the characters meet the lizard folk queen. They can earn more points through diplomacy and improving the tribe's strength and safety. The alliance is sealed if the characters reach or exceed 50 points, at which the lizard folk become friendly to them. They are invited to see the queen a second time, and during this session, the groundwork for Saltmarsh's inclusion of the alliance can be laid. The lizard folk can become irrevocably hostile if the character's total number of points drop to 0 or lower, even after the queen offers them chances at diplomacy and ways to improve their standing. If this happens, the lizard folk give them a second chance, and the character's mission ends in failure. So they start at 0, but if they drop to 0 or go lower after the queen gives them a chance at diplomacy, they will give them a second chance, and it'll end in failure. This happens after, okay, after they give them a second chance, it's an automatic failure. So meeting the queen is going to be very important. Still haven't really figured out how I'm gonna roleplay the queen. Probably very Lexa from the 100. That I have a character in one of my other groups that plays as Lexa, and I feel like I might play the lizard folk a little bit like her. Determine what the character's current point is by using the initial attitude table, giving them the benefits and penalties according to what they have done so far. Characters might have a negative score at this point if they are hostile toward the lizard folk prior to this audience. So, goes in to talk about the queen a little bit. She makes it very clear about how the character's behavior so far. Gives them a lot of credit for not killing any lizard folk, or chastises them for taking the lives of lizard folk unnecessarily. The hatchlings she'll be very, very mad about, as any queen bee, let's say, will be. Queen demands any return of treasure. I probably won't do that, as long as it's like hidden. But like, if they're carrying something big, they'll have to give it back. So the initial attitude before they go meet the queen, they're starting at 0. If they kill any lizard folk adults, -1 point per victim. Kill any hatchlings, -10. If they take any treasure from the lizard folk, that's -1 per gold piece of value unless returned. Okay, so it is kind of important, and maybe we'll have one of the guards kind of shake them down and empty their pockets. The rogue. One of the internet DMs kind of laughs at this part right here. So they start at 0, but if they even go into this area that they don't know that they're not supposed to go into, they automatically get -5 points. Like, so I'm gonna run it like that. We're gonna run, we're pretty much gonna run this book like exactly how it is, just to see like how it plays out. Killed no lizard folk +15. Arrived accompanied by hatchlings +10. So at this meeting, the maximum score that they can even have is 25. So they're going to have to go on this goodwill tour no matter what. I have a feeling that I think that a few lizard folk will die in the beginning, but I think that both of the parties that are going to do this will quickly learn that they probably shouldn't kill them. This party that's going into it tomorrow, they've already interfaced with 3 of them, and they don't trust the lizard folk. They think they're shady, and because I had to shroud them in a lot of mystery on like why these weapons were being bought, and the paladin is very skeptical and probably very much believes that the weapons that they're getting are to attack Saltmarsh. So that's good, and that'll kind of just keep up that surprise that they're actually fighting the Sahuagin until they meet the queen. So after the characters meet the queen, she gives them 24 hours to prove their worth and win the lizard folk's trust by visiting and interacting with the occupants of the lair. Successful charisma checks during this activity can add to the character's points, help sway the lizard folk into an alliance with Saltmarsh. For the best possible outcome, the characters must win over most or all of the occupants in the lair, including its 2 most important individuals. That's a lot. Earn the trust of an NPC or a group. Although lizard folk are merfolk, 1 or more characters must display their good intentions to that individual or group consistently for at least 3 hours. At the end of that time, a character can then attempt a charisma check against the DC that depends on the group or individual in question off of this table. On a successful check, the characters earn progress toward achieving the alliance. On a failed check, they don't lose any ground, but the character who made that check, along with any who helped the check, cannot try to gain that group or individual's trust again. And I really like this because I'm pretty avid on pretty serious about, like, okay, if somebody fails the roll, like, you kind of have to play that fail, like, and you'll see a lot of games or DMs kind of go into it and, like, all right, one person will kind of fail it and then everybody else tries until they get it. Like, if you're not supposed to fail it, don't put it behind a roll, right? But if you can fail it, always put a limit on how many times that can be rolled, and it's usually just one for me. But, like, okay, you're trying to pick a lock, the DC is 15, you get a 10, like, okay, you got one more chance until the lock pick is going to break and it's going to get stuck in the lock. Now you have to break it open, and if you break it open, you're going to maybe break something inside of the case. Like, it can't always just be like, okay, I try to pick the lock, okay, now I try to pick the lock, and then, like, the third person does, and now you're just kind of like making the game do what you want, and, like, you're taking away the dice, really. So got some. I will have, when I run this, I will have pretty much a whole screen of all of these tables. Or I might print them out to have somewhere that I can kind of, like, write on. There's a lot. There's this one, there's the initial attitude, there's also a table where when people are in one room, it'll push the lizard folk to another room, and, like, the whole thing, like, moves and breathes the entire adventure. It's a lot to track. If the characters can raise their score to 50 points with a sufficient number of successful checks, relations with the lizard folk become amicable and an alliance can be formalized. I wouldn't say that, like, they can get away with anything and the alliance will always be there. Obviously, if they, like, get the points and then kill somebody, like, that's not good, and you're gonna have to revisit it again. If they fall short at the end of the 24 hours, there are a couple other ways that they can get to the required number. So basically, that's saying that they have 8 checks. So if each one of these checks is for a 3-hour period of time, unless they split up, it's going to be 8 checks. So if the characters have exhausted all of their opportunities to impress the lizard folk but don't have the needed 50 points, Othokent might be willing to cooperate if the characters offer her tribute from their professional treasures, not including loot from the lair. For every 10 gold pieces, so you can't steal from the shopkeep and then sell it right back to him. For every 10 gold pieces in coin, gems, or any other valuables they offer, the characters can gain 1 point. Consumable magic items can earn 5 points, and permanent ones earn 10 points, provided the items have direct application for battle with Sahuagin. So weapons. There's other things that they can do. If your party is really not, like, RP heavy, if they're a beer and pretzels kind of party, or if they get bored of RP easily, you can have the queen send them on these little side quests. I will probably have the queen send them on this anyway at the end of it, but if you kind of want to run it like that and you don't want to go through the whole 24-hour social goodwill tour, you can have the queen give them this quest to kill a crocodile called Thousand Teeth. Thousand Teeth is CR6. Let's see. 3 legendary actions, including from the options below. Only 1 legendary action can be used at a time. And only at the end of a creature's turn. It regreens these spent legendary actions at the start of its turn. Okay, so this will be the first time that your characters will see. If it's the first time they're playing, this is the first time that they'll see legendary actions. Don't forget, movement's always a great thing to have. And you can have a bite action for 2. Pretty standard. Multi-attack makes 2 attacks. It's a +7. It's pretty easy to hit your squishies. 2d10 +4 plus a tail attack. Creature is then knocked prone, which he can then... Okay, so always go with the tail first. Always go with the tail, try to knock them over, and then hit them with a bite with advantage if they're prone. So the other little side quest that they can do is these bullywugs, and the bullywugs kind of show up as they're going there, as they're getting there, traveling to the lair. Yeah. So if they travel to the lair by land, they can run into these bullywugs, and I really like this this encounter. I don't know why. They're just frogs, and I just love the idea of them fighting giant frogs. It's just silly and funny, and I think that either way, if they approach by sea or land, I'll probably just force them to do this bullywug encounter. Yeah, I mean, if they, you know, I'm not gonna like be like, okay, you approach by sea and then you go through more marsh. Like, I'll eventually just push them towards this bullywug ambush, whether it's because of the queen wants them to do it, or it's on their way out, or they choose to go there by land. If they choose to enter the lair from basically any of these points, you can get them to go into it. But basically the only one that you can't run this bullywug encounter is if they go into the sea entrance. So this map in Roll20 does not give you the AB markers for what they can see as they're approaching, so you're gonna have to look that up. But go back to it. So if they're beer and pretzels, you can kind of send them to this killer crocodile thing. I will probably just run it after the adventure for maybe a little bit extra gold or something. Deal breakers. So regardless of how they otherwise conduct themselves, characters will see the mission end in failure, or at least be seriously compromised if they perform any of these deeds. If they free the Sahuagin, kill the queen, or this minister, Sarib, one of these shamans, I guess. So they kill those 2 people, or free any of the Sahuagin, they will immediately be either end in failure or be seriously compromised. So role-playing the lizard folk. So lizard folk, I kind of had trouble with, like, how do these lizard folk talk and act? And I want them to be intelligent, and I want them to be like sharp and witty and cunning, and you know, they're not just like lizards, you know. So I kind of stole the way that the Khajiit talk in like Skyrim and stuff, and they always talk like this one, and maybe a little bit of a Russian accent, but you know, you can kind of put a little bit of rasp into it, and they always refer to themselves as this one, not me. Like, they don't say I or me, they say this one or that one. So I kind of put that into it. Gives you some options for quirks that they have. I'm probably not going to use much of this stuff. Lizard folk names, I'll probably pick a few of these and just put on a card nearby in case they ask for them. Just always remember which names you use. So the adventure will likely unfold in the following way. The characters meet with the Saltmarsh Town Council, which hires them to investigate the Lizardfolk lair by sea or by land. The characters travel to the promontory to reach the Lizardfolk lair. They just gained a free pirate ship, basically, so they will probably approach by sea. You can try to kind of like, you know, ask them what's everybody doing. Somebody will probably say that they're keeping an eye out. Have them roll a perception check, and maybe you can say that they even see one of the giant bullywugs. You can say that you can see there's kind of a clump of brush, and like it's kind of like looks a little unnatural, as if someone had tried to make like a makeshift shelter. And then the characters enter the lair and explore it. So this bullywug encounter, just go back to it because I love it. Found a map from neutral party, and I'm going to put them in this square, and then they're going to get ambushed. So the waves are there are 3 waves, and they will ambush them because the bullywugs have found a basically some treasure, and they didn't want to travel with the treasure and risk losing it, so they stopped here in the marshes while they wait for their king to travel here from 10 miles away, so that he could come there with more reinforcements to bring their treasure. The king, Gulpagor, arrived the night before the party struck out into the marsh. He and his advisor Arp inspected the treasure. When the king learns of the party's presence, he and Arp stage a competition to see who can waylay the tasty interlopers. So the first wave is 6 bullywugs attempt to surprise the characters leaping from the muddy water to attack. So try to get a surprise round on them. However, I have 6 level 4 characters, and that is not a lot. 6 bullywugs. It's not really going to be that hard. It doesn't even register as an easy one. So I bumped it to 10. So it starts off as easy, and basically that just is so that the characters can kind of just like squash them, and they're gonna be like, this is easy, they're just frogs. You basically just stomp them out, and that's really all you have to do. It'll probably get progressively worse, but they're pretty much just gonna destroy these guys, which is okay. Second wave, Arp, a bullywug croaker, and 2 bullywugs arrive shortly after the first wave is defeated. They make a grand show of battling the characters, and Arp grins at the king whenever he is effective in combat. So really, really play that up. Like, just be as goofy as you possibly can with these frogs, because that's what kind of makes this whole encounter. So I bumped it to 1 bully croaker and 6 bullywugs. I don't think Kobold Fight Club has it, but I bumped it up a little bit. What's up, Frog Squee? What's going on? So I kind of had to bump that up a little bit because these guys are just going to absolutely decimate these poor frogs. Gulpagor, the bullywug royal, arrives mounted on a giant toad, which I just love that, shortly after Arp and his guards are slain. So the encounter is written as just a bullywug royal and a giant toad approaching, but I'm gonna have him hey, you know, I thought that yours was pretty good, so when are you gonna run your one shot again? I won't play that again. But I'm gonna bump it up to 4 giant toads and a bullywug royal just because I know that they're gonna be able to handle it. So I'm also gonna have all of these bullywugs kind of show up and just kind of like circle them around. Then they're not gonna attack. They're just gonna like not scare the party, but you know, they're just gonna show them that there's a lot in there. King tries to communicate with the party with harsh croaks and aggressive gestures, boasting of his prowess in battle. A dozen more bullywugs appear on the edge of the battlefield, but do not approach. So it's just a really great encounter that is just, you really got to make it really silly because they're gonna crush all of them. So it's not about it being a hard encounter; it's about it being like a funny one. Any equally aggressive response from the characters, verbally or through gestures, and a successful DC 16 charisma, intimidation, or persuasion check convinces the king to retreat and take his remaining warriors with him. I'm probably gonna fight the king till he's dead, but at the last second when he's got 0 HP, I'm gonna like have him kind of like, you know, put up a hand in defeat and see if the characters will spare this poor frog and let all the frogs go. The king is attacked or goaded into battle on a failed check. The other bullywugs do not fear. His steed is trained in combat, and when allowed to act independently, attacks the nearest enemy. Gulpagore tries to skewer the characters from astride the toad's back, commanding it to move when necessary, but mostly letting it do as it pleases. The remaining bullywugs flee into the marsh when their leader dies, if their leader dies. So the treasure is 325 platinum pieces and a helm of underwater action. So this is basically why I really want to kind of force this encounter, because they're gonna need that helm of underwater action. And I mean, whatever, 325 platinum pieces is a lot of money, but these dudes are already loaded anyway. So gold's not really gonna be an issue for them. So let me pull up this helm of while wearing this brass helmet, you can breathe underwater. You gain dark vision with a range of 60 feet, and you gain a swimming speed of 30 feet. So, you know, any character that has an issue with swimming or swim speed, you know, they're probably going to take that, or maybe somebody that's adept to it. But that's a pretty big item in this campaign. So somebody's got to have it. Because if they don't, we have to talk about underwater combat, which I'm trying to pull up here. There's some specific rules for underwater combat. When making a melee weapon attack, a creature that does not have a swimming speed has disadvantage on the attack roll on the weapon unless the weapon is a dagger, javelin, short sword, spear, or trident. A ranged weapon attack automatically misses a target beyond the weapon's normal range. Even against a target with normal range, the attack roll is disadvantage unless the weapon is a crossbow, a net, or a weapon that is thrown like a javelin, including a spear, trident, or dart. So, you know, if any of your characters are struggling in the water, you know, that's going to be a big item for them. Not that they've had many chances to fight underwater. It will come up. So yeah, that's the bullywug thing. I highly recommend fitting it in there so that they can get that item. Also because it's awesome and it's frogs. Through the interaction with the lizard folks or their guests, the characters learn that either lizard folks' enmity or their respect. If they proceed cautiously or without violent intent, they will likely be taken to an audience with the queen, Othokent. Depending on how they have conducted themselves to that point, the characters might be able to improve their reputation with the tribe by using their diplomatic skills. Best possible outcome for the characters is to befriend the lizard folk and for Othokent to invite them to join and Saltmarsh and an alliance. Yo, what up, Shadow? Oh man, I really want to get a VR set up. I keep seeing all these like ads for this virtual like D&D system that like is in VR, and there's like a table that the dungeon master can use, and like basically you all put on VR and you all sit around a virtual tabletop, um, and play D&D in, yeah, tabletop sim. Yeah, it's so crazy. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to learn all this like 3D D&D stuff. Yeah, and 40K and like the DM can like embody the avatars, like the tokens of the bosses. So like in those moments when when your big villain is monologuing, like you can monologue as the villain and everybody's watching you do that. But like, okay, like you got to make the argument, somebody's gonna say, at what point are you just playing a video game? And like that's a lot of work for the DM to like put together this whole 3D world. But like, I don't know, like with quarantine and all that stuff, like I really wish that that was like a really nice and fleshed out thing that like all of our friends could like meet together in this virtual tabletop. Oh, okay, they make it super easy now. I mean, I'll definitely check it out. And you know, I've been using Roll20 forever, and yeah, you know, I'm kind of dependent on it. And it was like 5 years ago it was bare bones for sure. Nice, yeah. I think there was a mod to use Roll20. Oh, all right. We might have to investigate that a little bit. But like, I wonder how it works for the people. You know, not everybody's gonna have VR. Does it? Can you still like, you know, if the players don't have VR, can they still play? I'll re-download it, check it out. Yeah, yeah. Because like I don't want to exclude anybody just because they don't have like a $4,000 VR. If I recall, you can cosplay. Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, I would love to do that, and just like I probably wouldn't put like too much into it. I'd probably like, you know, do like a one shot, and I can't imagine trying to set up that whole thing like for a campaign. As a desktop application alongside the VR. Yeah, that's cool. 24 delete. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, I can imagine trying to set up a whole campaign in like a virtual. I don't know. I've never seen it, so it's on my radar, and I think it's a really cool idea. But even the Roll20 stuff and like playing D&D through Discord and Roll20, I still feel bad that like like this is, it's just not the same, you know. And like, I don't know, that VR thing like might be the thing that like, you know, makes it that level again, because you know, at the end of the day we all just want to sit at a table and laugh and drink. So we have gotten through the rules of affair and the tables. Yo, what up? Lunar coming in with a raid party for what's up? Welcome everybody. My name is Uncle Eddie and I will be your dungeon master. We're just talking about the Ghost of Saltmarsh. We're talking about danger at Dunwater. Just kind of going over everything. This is kind of a loaded adventure. It's kind of a lot of things going on. So the true motives of this should not reveal it too soon to the characters, that the lizard folk do not constitute a real threat to Saltmarsh or its inhabitants, or that the newly purchased weaponry is not for humanity and its allies. What up, y'all? What's up? What's going on, everybody? Characters are expected to discover the real intentions of lizard folk from the various clues in the adventure as they play through it. Unless their mission turns to utter failure, they must eventually become aware that there's a war brewing with the lizard folk and the Sahuagin. So, unless indicated or otherwise in a particular encounter area, the characters must not be informed about the name or nature of the Sahuagin. May have already told them what Sahuagin are. Rather, you should only provide a general physical description of these creatures when encounter occurs. I usually use like fish people. All right, Shadow. See you later, buddy. I hope you enjoy your VR. What are you playing? I really want to play Skyrim VR again. No, you and Eddie got the VR. You're making me want to get it, and I gotta fix my motorcycle still. So I'm playing a Township Tale. Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out someday. Okay, so the inset on map 3.1 shows the location of the Lizardfolk colony and the features of the vicinity. Even if the characters have not been through the sinister secret of Saltmarsh, they still receive the map. So they have this map. Mihauzota, what up? Skyrim VR is so wild. Honestly, I saw like a funny a video of like, I don't know, maybe they modded it or something like that, and somebody was playing Skyrim VR, and like you can like run up and like all the tavern signs like hanging from like wood, you can like run up and just like, you know, like tap them like in school when you run through a doorway, you gotta tap the door frame. Like that, I really only want to play Skyrim VR just so that I can jump up and tap the the signs at each of the taverns. But like, I want to have like to do magic in VR when you're playing Skyrim. Like, that's probably so cool. Mod it so that it actually looks good and it's not like a 50-year-old game. And yeah. But well, dears, I got to go get some dinner. All right, enjoy your dinner. Thanks again for the raid, and have a great night. I never tried that, but I will. You never tried it? Oh man, it's like just like sitting there, just waiting to be slapped. Okay, so this inset map shows the location of the colony. So this map that they give you is not going to have, it doesn't have any of the lettered locations that you need. I wonder if it has it in this D&D Beyond link. Nope. Hey, what up, Dead Toast? Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. So, as they are traveling to the lair, it's about 10 miles as the crow flies, and a sea journey would likely take about 3 hours in normal conditions. It will most likely approach by sea. If the characters want to travel by sea, Kanto places their at the disposal modified keelboat. They already have a boat. Navigation and propulsion of the craft is handled by 2 members of the town guard. Again, they'll, you know, I'm gonna have to kind of open them up to maybe finding some crew members before they embark on this adventure, just so that, you know, they're not trying to sail a large ship by themselves. While they're at sea, as the boat approaches the promontory, the characters can see a well-traveled and relatively dry track at the point marked A on the map leading to the coast. It disappears into the marshland interior. So that, you know, it's not a very big map to start with, but if we're looking at the Azure Coast, they will find this Lizardfolk lair here, this being the Dunwater River. So as they're approaching from Saltmarsh, they're going to hook around, and they're going to see this first entrance. This is kind of the entrance that I want them to go into, because it then leads into this long trek through the salt marsh, and you can really play that up like, you know, all your boots are gonna get wet, and you're pulling your feet from the muck and mud, and you know, everything is very sloppy, and you know, there's just a lot of just really nasty bugs and just very hot, humid weather. Once they are within 40 feet of the promontory's northern coastline, the party spies another track running up the middle elevations of the promontory, where it disappears behind a clump of tall grasses and brightly flowering shrubs. That, I guess, is somewhere here, into this right here. They also note, as they approach by sea, a 15-foot wide, 6-foot high sea cave entrance on the northern tip of the promontory, marked E on the map. Careful approach by sea goes unnoticed until after the characters disembark and enter the entrance tunnel. Once inside area 49, they are likely to be discovered immediately. So they have two things that are going to happen if they enter this. One is they're going to get -5 points to their reputation to the lizard folk just for going in this entrance at all. And then area 49, which should be somewhere. I think right here. Yep. There are 4 lizard folk already just in the water, and as soon as they enter this area, these guys are going to pop out and maybe start a fight. Maybe. We've got some colinth, we've got some giant sea eels, and a bunch of lizard folk waiting in the wings. And it's got this like moving roster that is going to be very difficult to track. And I think that the best way that you can kind of approach this is just learn this table as best as you can. Study, you know, the layouts of these lizard folk around, judging by whatever Roll20 has provided you, or by what you're building through the book. Place them as best as you can, and you know, I wouldn't worry too much about following this exactly the way that it's going to happen. You know, you're already going to be tracking the lizard folk, or the party's reputation with the lizard folk. You're already going to be tracking you know, who are they killing, what treasure do they have. So keep this up, keep it nearby, and try to follow it as best as you can. But if you start to get a little overwhelmed with it, just kind of play them as you think that it would happen. You know, these guys are going to come into this area in 49 maybe, and these 4 are going to pop up. These guys, you know, might hang out in the wings and wait to see what happens here. The book says these guards go to the gate area 41 in response to the noise there. Otherwise, they remain here until encountered. If that happens, one tries to flee to 44 to get reinforcements. So there's a gate here at 41. They're waiting around here. They'll go here if they hear any noise in this area. They will also retreat. One will retreat to area 44. Area 44 is this room here. We've got 2 lizard folk and a lizard folk scale shield, which these guys are cool. They've got a spiked shield with them. So if these guys are put into a fight with the party, one of them will disengage, grab 3 of his boys, and come back with reinforcements. Hopefully, of course, that does not come to violence. Yeah, let's put this on the same page. Hopefully they don't just kill everything in sight, but you never know. That's, you know, if you plan for none of the lizard folk to get killed, I'm sorry, but that's probably what's going to happen. So they arrive by sea in any of those locations. Hopefully not the sea cave. If you really wanted them not to go into this area, you could hide it behind a perception roll and put it behind the high DC. I don't think that it's too important that they don't go over here. Just give it the -5 and see how they handle it. The other way would be, let's see if the music's getting a little loud. The other way that they could approach is by land. The overland journey is longer because of difficult terrain. Again, play up the whole, you're in a swamp, you're in the Hool Marshes. Dozens of trails follow a route roughly parallel to the coast and 100 to 400 yards away from it. Because of the terrain, the party will take 12 hours to travel from Saltmarsh to the ford over the Dunwater River, marked B on the map. This time does not account for resting, but does allow slow movement at times when the mists inhibit visibility. As long as the characters move at this rate, the route is easily followed, and there are no risks of straying in the wrong direction. So, slow, but will take a long time. I might introduce some diseases. I don't know, maybe. I'll probably put the DC pretty low because diseases are kind of terrible to deal with in D&D. And I'll kind of just introduce it slowly, maybe, and maybe 1 or 2 of them will get it and easily be, you know, cured by a lizard folk shaman or something, or, you know, a cleric from the Temple of Procan. Again, if they approach by land, give them the bullywug encounter. Lizard folk in this colony are more developed than others of their kind, as demonstrated by their ability to use sophisticated weaponry and their readiness to ally with other races when necessity dictates. They still lag behind more intelligent races, however. The construction of their lair is simplistic, employing only basic materials. Most floors, walls, and ceilings are of rammed earth, and the furnishings are Spartan. Some general features: it's a lair, it's an old lizard folk colony lair, it's in the middle of a swamp. You can kind of fill in the features as you see. Some hazards that you can put into it. I think anything in these boxes are useful to use. You can give them a bog pit, you can give them green slime and quicksand. You know, maybe you want to give them, if any of them have horses or animals or pets, or depending on how evil you want to be, you can give them the never-ending story scene where the horse gets stuck in the quicksand. Maybe they just find a commoner trying to make his way through the swamp, and you know, his horse got stuck in some quicksand. You know, maybe you could throw that in there. Roll a d20, and on a 19 or a 20, they encounter, what's the guy's name from Neverending Story? What's the boy's name? Maybe they encounter him trying to get his horse out or something. I don't know. Depends. Know your party. Know what they can handle. You know, are they going to get the reference? Do you want references like that in your game? Just ideas. So, in this adventure, the Queen, the Sub-Chief Irtos, and the Shamans in the scale sheets can speak and understand the common tongue. Atreyu, yeah. Why am I? Of course I knew that. I haven't seen it in so long. But, I don't know, maybe toss it in there. And that also feels very Red Dead Redemption-y, like the way that their random encounters kind of happen. You're kind of just like riding through the woods, and you know, you hear on the side of the road some guy stepped into like a bear trap. You know, your random encounters don't always have to be combat, and some of the best random encounters are almost like never combat, because you know, random encounter combat in the middle of traveling is not really like a consequence. There's no real consequence to it, because you know, you're gonna fight in one day, they're gonna throw everything they got at them, and then they're just gonna take a long rest. So the more random encounters that you can have that aren't just combat are good. So one of them being this quicksand trap. Just an idea. All lizard folk speak Draconic and are illiterate. Lizard folk of this colony are nervous and on edge, fearful of imminent Sahuagin invasion. I've kind of put a little bit of like mystery and shroud on them. They're always going to kind of be very shy. Not shy, but they're always going to be kind of shrouded in something that they don't want the players, especially if they're just like humans or something, they don't want to kind of interface like that. The aged lizard folk minister Sariv is fluent and literate in common. In addition, a few weeks before this adventure began, the lair was raided by a party of humans and half-ogres who were all defeated, but at the cost of many lizard folk lives. That's the first time I read that, actually. So that's interesting. So that gives them another reason to not want to trust these outsiders, which makes their job even harder. With the exception of the minister in Area 38, all the lizard folk are initially mildly suspicious of the characters, though the intruders are obviously not Sahuagin. They do not attack at first sight unless characters have been seen committing an act that provokes their hostility, but the characters are curtly challenged, and unless they think of a suitable story, ordered to leave or surrendered by word or gesture. Their refusal to do so automatically prompts an attack. So that's kind of like, you know, if you never have to go be an adult. Okay, Frank, bye. Thanks for stopping by. Oh yeah, I'll have to set up this little lurk thing. I've got a few commands that I will have to ask Loki for help with. We're getting it. Oh, I got the one box for the most recent follower. I got that to work. But thanks for stopping by, Frunk. I'll see you later. Blah, blah, blah. In such attack, the lizard folk's first priority is the expulsion rather than the death of the intruder. So it's written that these lizard folk are always going to try to give them a second chance. They're always going to try to like do everything that they can to not bring it to violence. You know, these guys don't want to fight this. The lizard folk don't want to immediately fight the party unless they have a reason to do so. So that your party has a chance to think about what they're doing and maybe answer and maybe try to talk their way out of it. You know, if you just throw monsters at a party and none of them speak, none of them can, you know, like an orc or, you know, some monster with no common tongue, the party's always going to kill them. But the moment that you start speaking to them in the middle of combat, it immediately raises even a new player into like, okay, I want to talk to this person. Maybe there's something else that we can do, unless they're a murder hobo. But like, you know, always in this adventure, try to talk it out first. Don't try to stop the characters from trying to fight them, but always put it out there that lizard folk can understand common, and that if they wanted to talk to them, that they could. And if you're in the middle of a fight and the characters say something like give up or they're losing, you know, then you can always have options to end combat or sway it another way. If the entire layer were to mount a mass attack against the party, the characters will be quickly overwhelmed. Your job here is to find a balance and to respond to the party's actions accordingly. If the characters try to communicate with the lizard folk even during battle, consider halting the combat and allow the characters to exercise their social skills. So exactly that. The queen needs allies in the coming war and prefers to avoid violence, especially if doing so helps her ally with strong warriors, such as the party. You know, these are, like I said, very intelligent beings. They're not, you know, in D&D, you know, you see this a lot. You know, they're monster races that you have to play intelligently. Some lizard folk can know common, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind that common is not the native tongue for the race, but their mindset results in a speech pattern distinct from that of other common-speaking humanoids. Lizard folk rarely use metaphors and complex sentences. Their speech is almost always literal, halting, but not primitive. So they're not cavemen and cave people. They might pick up the meaning of an idiom, but only with some difficulty. Names confuse them, unless the names are descriptive. They tend to apply their own naming conventions to their own creatures using common words. Lizard folk use active verbs to describe the world. A lizard folk is in cold weather might say, "This wing brings cold," or rather than "I feel cold." Lizard folk tend to express concepts in terms of actions rather than the effects. So, yeah, I kind of looked straight to Skyrim, and because I was playing a lot of ESO, and I didn't go to the Argonians because they're a little bit not well spoken, but I was looking for something that was like not more primitive, but like the common wasn't their first tongue, and the Khajiit definitely had it, and I just kind of merged the two. It's just a Argonian with speaking as a Khajiit. So lizard folk is a dynamic and living place, so you're gonna have to follow this table. There are patrols in the lair. Lizard folk patrol the corridors in the lair routinely. Unless the characters are extremely stealthy and careful, they are bound to encounter a patrol at some point. A guard patrol consists of 2 lizard folk, one which carries a torch because torches are normally unlit, and 1 lizard folk scale shield. Every 10 minutes the characters spend traveling in the corridors, roll a d12. On a 12, the characters come up on a guard patrol. A lot of things to remember, a lot of things to keep track of. One member of each guard patrol carries a key that unlocks either of the gates in Area 41. So, And that's pretty easy to remember too, because each guard, a guard's going to carry that big ring of keys, and maybe one of them has it. North entrance. So we've got tracks leading into the marsh door. We've got a survival or investigation check to find a hidden entrance. Otherwise, spotting the door requires a DC 14 perception. Shrubs and the tall grass conceal a large, stout wooden door. So, area 1, they will be, if they enter from this north area here. So if they enter from this north area, they are immediately met by 5 lizard folk. Door is unlocked. Simply opening the door without making any other noise does not attract the attention of the guards in area 2. Does not attract the attention. So, is your party very loud? If the parties had not alerted the guards here, lizard folk are lounging on benches and talking amongst themselves. Modified description: the room is bare except for 2 wooden benches set opposite each other against the longer walls. A handful of lizard folk stand at attention, ready to move into action. So, upon seeing them, they will challenge the characters, demanding that they retreat, and the other guard joins him immediately. If a fight breaks out, one guard tries to run back into the barracks in Area 3. If the guard gets away, return to development section of Area 3. So is this... Let's see. Okay, so at least as you're reading through the module and they're going through areas, it seems like this development at least links back to the table. So at least you won't have to have both of them open if you don't want to. So we've got area 2, and one of them will run and grab the lizard folk here. I would say maybe wait to do that until the second round, so that you're not just throwing 8 lizard folk and a lizard folk scale shield. That's a lot of combat. If the characters are trying to go into this with combat, it's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, look, there's a lot of lizard folk in this lair. So if they make it to the barracks, 13 straw mattresses are set around the room. Beside each is a closed chest. In the center of the room is a long wooden table with 2 wooden benches beside it. There's 4 lizard folk here. This area has some treasure. Got 100 silver pieces, a dagger and a bone scabbard, and a wooden mallet, crude reed flute, and a crude pewter mug with Simoya's symbol, a reptilian egg scratched into the side. Officer carries a key to the chest in area 4 and a belt pouch. So there's a lot of stuff that these characters might not even ever see. So if there's anything in this when you're reading through it that you want them to have, you might want to put it somewhere else, because they've got this huge thing. But if they're going to go through it and enter into the store, get challenged by these guards, and like not be aggressive about it, they might go straight to the queen right there, which the queen would be located here, or sorry, right here. So we've got a little more treasure in the officers' quarters, a little more exploration for them. This is also a good time for your characters to kind of flesh out like how they move through dungeons, and who's best at investigations, and they're basically going to be, you're teaching them to look for these chests and stuff like that, even though most of this equipment will be taken from them by the queen. And there's something to remember about, like, as soon as they meet these guards, like, it's very rare that a party will ever submit or give up or surrender. It's very rare that a party is ever going to want to get arrested. So when you challenge them with the guards, you have to be very careful, and again, you have to know your party. Is your party going to immediately become hostile when these guards try to not arrest them, but prod them towards meeting the queen? They're going to ask them to put their weapons away. They're going to either ask them to put the weapons away or hand them over. If there's somebody that's very hostile, one of them might ask to have a set of manacles put on them, and that is very touchy because your party, they're supposed to be adventurers and they're supposed to be heroes, right? So never do they want to be out of their own powers. So just be careful with it. The lizard folk are going to be on edge, and they will try to use their words and their presence and their numbers to avoid having to arrest them and move them while they're in shackles or something like that, kicking and screaming down the hallway. That's just never gonna go good for the characters or your narrative. So we've got officers' quarters. Again, this time there is a lizard folk warrior in scale armor that sits on the bed facing the door as he sharpens his sword with a whetstone. He leaps up ready to fight as soon as the characters enter. The characters avoided combat up until this point. Lizard folk in areas 2 and 3 join the officers in this room when they hear the sounds of combat. He's got a chest in here containing some gold, some electrum pieces, a dagger, a leather whip. Officer carries the chest and he wears a silver collar. Okay. All right, we've got an armory here. And this armory will probably also, it doesn't look like they have it, but the party that I'm going to have run this tomorrow have made it to Saltmarsh and let the lizard folk go with their weapons that they bought from the pirates. So you also have to fill in that with whatever they got from them, which I think this is close. The characters pause in the corridor near this room. So let's see, we are in area 7. Characters pause anywhere near this area. They detect a smell in the air. It reminds them of cooking meat, though it is acrid, though with an acrid tang to it. I don't know what that means. This odor is being emitted from the roasting carcasses. Similarly, if they do not pause to specifically listen, they hear chattering, muffled clinking as the lizard folk turn to the spits and otherwise go about their business. So we've got a kitchen with some meat being cooked. There's some workers in there tending to the food. It's a long table with knives, meat, bone. There's some uncured hides. Basically, this place will feed the whole place, I suppose. These are lizard folk commoners, which I assume that they are not. Okay, they've got some hit points. They can only bite. Yeah, I didn't expect them to have any weapons. So, yeah, I mean, a level 4 party will absolutely kill any of these guys. Otherwise, they escape to the nearest barracks. Okay. If they convince these commoners of their good intentions, so by offering gifts or not drawing weapons, they lead them to Area 9. Where's Area 9? Okay, there's an Area 9 with some shaman. The basing liquid is a spiced oil. 2 of the barrels contain a fresh water, the third is half full of brine. The cask contains salt. 2 of the buckets by the east contain herb, some animal fat, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there's carcasses here. One of them is a sahuagin, so that is important to note. And the other is a shark. If Oceanus is with the party, he can identify the Sahuagin carcass for what it is. Otherwise, they will need an intelligence check to enable a character to deduce that the carcass belongs to some sort of humanoid sea creature. They will automatically, by the way that I have ran this already, they will automatically identify this is something that they've seen before as the Sahuagin. The hides are under the table from those creatures. The buckets contain the entrails and edible organs. You gotta remember, these lizard folk guys, like, they'll eat bones and like anything. If you play a lizard folk as a player character, they have a feature that you can literally eat something and gain health. So, you know, you can really play, you know, they're intelligent and you want them to not be scary, but at the same time, you do want to still remind the players that they are a force to be reckoned with, and that they are, you know, they'll literally eat the Sahuagin and sharks. So okay, let's skip the stores. If they don't try to fight them, they will lead them to Area 9. Area 9, they are led to some barracks. 15 straw mattresses are placed around the room, each with a small wooden chest. You got 4 lizard folk warriors receive orders from a heavily armored officer. Others are lizard folk dressed in a robe, stands at one side observing the assembly. So, looks like if the party comes here and meets the commoners obviously don't want anything to do with adventurers or fighting or swords. They just want to do their jobs, and they'll lead them to all of these warriors and a scale shield and a shaman, and probably they will escort them escort them to the queen. If they have not, and they find these guys during their goodwill tour, perhaps they could try to help them in their cooking, or you know, roll up their sleeves, wash some dishes, or after a little bit of work in the kitchen serving some of the lizard folk, then they could make their persuasion roll for these commoners and earn some points. Either way, they will then, maybe when they're done, they'll lead them to the Area 9, and maybe they'll have some work for them in Area 9. So, you know, maybe they have some work in the storage areas. They can get a quicker look. They can get a closer look at some of these carcasses, including one of the Sahuagins. If one of your characters wants to know about stuff like that, maybe you could, you know, let them do some kind of medicine checks to find strengths and weaknesses of the Sahuagin. Be very careful of that, what you tell them. Okay. We've got a banquet hall. Some commoners again. They could help out with some kind of feast. And finally, the throne room. So once they meet any of the lizard folk, they're probably escorted here. Looks like there's a secret trap door, some trophy heads. The presence of 2 lizard folk hatchlings in the company of the characters might create problems, but it can also be helpful to the mission's success because it carries the lizard folk into the lair to pause instead of immediately attacking. So if they're carrying any of these eggs that they find in this throne room, 2 sets of 3 pillars flank a central area where 2 lizard folk hatchlings are playing. At the far end of the room, a wooden throne stands on a low stone dais. Carvings of reptiles decorate the throne, and glints of reflected light hint at the presence of inset gemstones. Several heads of the creatures hang on the wall, mounted on plaques of wood for display as trophies. So, I don't see anything about... Okay, so there's just hatchlings that have wandered here. They have no treather and fearless and quite harmless. There's no description of the... Okay, yes, there are 2 lizard folk hatchlings are playing. So yeah, once they have these guys, I don't know how they would make it to this throne room without first encountering Sahuagin elsewhere. I guess they could come straight down past those guys, kill them, and then come here, I guess. Okay. So, I mean, that's that's pretty much the gist of it. Again, I wouldn't go too crazy on like following everything that you have to do with this roster. I just think that you should know this very well and just kind of play it by ear as any other session that you would run. We've got some magic weapons. They can fight some giant lizards, but you know, this is very much a know how your party is going to react quest. So if you know that your party is evil, you have a massive dungeon crawl ahead of you. If you know that your party is more diplomatic or can be swayed that way, you have a very social adventure. And I was thinking about it for a while, and I was like, why do they have this in here? And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Nomengard from Dragon of Icespire Peak. It's a little more of a social quest, and as a lower level party, these guys are level 4 though. It's just a nice change of pace. I will say though that I will agree with some of the criticisms that this kind of seems a little out of place to a campaign about like pirate, if you wanted to be like centered around pirates and like seafaring adventures. But at the same time, not all bad things in your pirate adventure happens on the water. So it's a good adventure, and I'm gonna keep it in there. But I don't know, something to think about. Afterwards, you can send them, if they haven't already, on this croc hunt. There's a legendary crocodile. The queen will offer them a vile tasting flask of swamp water mashed with various roots. It's a potion of superior healing. So we've got some random encounters. This GOS of Saltmarsh book is very good with giving you tables. And I definitely suggest whether or not, however your party decides to approach this quest, whether it's violent or diplomatic, I would definitely recommend playing any of these epilogue and the bullywug encounter, because at the end of the day, they're gonna want to fight something and roll some dice, no matter how diplomatic your party can be. But yeah, that's kind of it. I'm probably gonna have to read this another 2 times to really get what's going on here. But that's just kind of the name of the game. And I hope anything that I've said will help you out in your own time when you run Danger at Dunwater River. But yeah, I think that both of my parties will approach it pretty well and do pretty well with this. But that's pretty much all I got for tonight. We'll see how it goes on Thursday, and then again this Saturday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, we will return to the GOS of Saltmarsh for the streamed campaign. And I will see you guys then. I think I'm gonna end it here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little peek, see if there's anybody that we can raid. If anybody has any recommendations, you can let me know. Let's see what we've got here. We've got my friend Shadow. He's playing Township. You saw him come in a little bit earlier. Let's see what we got. Comanche from that. Copper Sparrow. Trash can. Okay, I think... Oh, Copper Sparrow is streaming Dungeons and Dragons right now. Let's see what he's doing. Okay, yeah, he's playing D&D right now. So we're gonna take this party to Copper Sparrow. So I hope you all enjoyed it. My name's Uncle Eddie, and I have been your Dungeon Master. And I will see you guys Saturday. So let's see if I can do this raid What is it? Exclamation point. How do we do this? I'm a boomer. What's his name? Copper Sparrow. There we go. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Is it X? Nope, I did it wrong. There we go. All right, friends, we're on our way. Okay. So, again, have a great night. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. And until Saturday, I will see you then. Bye.
Activate the line, but you will not. That's your action for the turn. So you.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that because I want to use the fire elemental stuff.
Yeah. So you can do it in the future if you want to. It's up to.